The alarm in Jace Rowan's bunk buzzed twice, then died with a weak crackle. Power-saving mode again. Out here on Outpost K-17, even the alarms were tired. Jace lay on his narrow bunk and stared at the metal ceiling for a moment, listening to the hum of the life support pumps and the distant grinding of ore haulers. Another shift, another day of fixing other people's broken machines, another 20 hours closer to paying off the debt that chained him to this quiet rock in the middle of nowhere. He swung his legs over the side of the bunk and sat up. His boots were cold. The recycled air had a metallic taste, as always. He rubbed his face, feeling the rough stubble on his jaw, and forced himself to stand. "Let's go, Rowan," he muttered to himself. "The broken pipes won't fix themselves." He pulled on his work jacket, checked his tool belt, and stepped into the corridor. The lights flickered once, then steadied. The outpost always looked half asleep. Faded paint, exposed wiring, panels that had been opened and never quite closed right again. Jace knew every one of them. He had fixed most of them with his own hands. He liked his work, if he was honest. Machines made sense. They didn't lie, didn't play games. They broke for a reason. You found the reason, and you fixed it. Simple. People were harder. He walked down toward the engineering bay, nodding to the few early shift workers he passed. A miner with gray dust still on his clothes, a tired med tech, a cargo jockey checking his wrist pad. Nobody looked too closely at anyone else. That was how K-17 worked. You did your job, you minded your business, and you pretended you were here by choice. Jace was almost at the bay doors when the outpost shuddered. It was a deep, heavy tremor, like a giant hand pressing on the hull. The lights dimmed to red emergency glow, and a low siren wailed through the corridors. Jace caught himself on the wall, instincts kicking in. Air leak? Reactor fault? Then he heard it. The sharp, distant roar of thrusters. Not from a hauler, too powerful, too close. He looked toward the nearest viewport. Outside, the stars were cut by a huge, dark shape descending toward the landing pads. Sleek lines, glowing sigils along the hull, a design that was too smooth and elegant to be human. Volari. Jace's stomach clenched. He had seen the Volari ships on the feeds as a kid, an old empire older than humanity's presence in this sector. Beautiful, cold, and endlessly patient. They didn't come to outposts like this without a reason. The siren switched tone. The outpost PA crackled, and Administrator Halverson's voice came through, thin and strained. "Attention all personnel. We are receiving an unscheduled diplomatic arrival from the Volari Empire. All non-essential personnel remain in your quarters. Engineering and command stand by. Do not approach the landing pads. Repeat, do not approach..." The message cut off with a static hiss. Jace frowned. That wasn't standard. Even for a surprise inspection, Halverson would not sound that nervous. And he had definitely not said anything about shutting down power or systems. Yet the corridor lights flickered again, and a faint distortion rolled through the air, like static electricity on skin. Shield field, Jace realized. They had thrown a localized suppression bubble over the outpost, Volari tech, way beyond his pay grade. "Great," he muttered. "That's not ominous at all." He should have gone back to his bunk like ordered, but the engineer in him needed to see what was happening. If the field messed with their systems, he would be the one patching them anyway. So instead of turning around, Jace headed for the nearest observation deck. The deck was almost empty. One junior comms tech stood near the glass, looking like she regretted every decision that had brought her here. Jace stepped up beside her. Outside, the Volari ship had settled on the main landing pad like a dark, graceful predator. It was huge, its hull marked with swirling blue patterns that shifted and shimmered, alive with energy. Long spines curved from its flanks, and its engines glowed a deep, steady violet. A ramp extended with smooth, silent precision. Figures emerged, tall, slender, and robed, armor gleaming, weapons held with casual confidence. Their skin was pale with a faint iridescent sheen, their eyes luminous. Even through the glass, Jace could feel the weight of their presence. "Do you think they're here for trade?" the comms tech whispered. Jace's jaw tightened. "Volari don't come in person for trade. That's what envoys and data packets are for." "So, what then?" He had no answer. Minutes later, the outpost internal comm chimed. This time it wasn't Halverson's voice. It was deeper, smoother, carrying a strange accent. "Jace Rowan, human male, designation engineer, report to Docking Bay 1, immediately." The comms tech turned to stare at him. Jace blinked. "That's new." "They know your name," she said, voice thin. "Yeah, I noticed." His heart was beating faster now, but he forced his feet to move. There was no point in hiding. If the Volari wanted him, they could tear the outpost apart until they found him. Better to see what this was about. On the way to the docking bay, he passed 2 security officers. Their faces were pale. One of them opened his mouth as if to speak, then shut it again. No one stopped Jace. The doors to Docking Bay 1 slid open before he could even key them. Inside, the air felt heavier, charged with foreign energy. Volari guards lined the walls, their long spears humming softly. Administrator Halverson stood near the center of the bay, eyes wide with barely hidden fear. Beside him stood 3 Volari in ornate robes, and one in dark armor with a cloak that flowed like shadow. The armored one turned when Jace entered. His eyes were like polished steel. "Human Jace Rowan," he said. "Step forward." Jace swallowed and did as told. His boots sounded loud on the metal floor. "I'm Jace," he said, keeping his voice steady. "Engineer. You seem to know that already. Can I ask why your ship is sitting on our pad and your field is crushing our systems?" Halverson winced. The Volari didn't. "We come with the authority of the Volari throne," said the armored one. "I am High Marshal Kareth. This is Priestess Interpreter Ciela, and Lord Regent Thalan." He gestured to the robed figures. "You have been selected for an imperial duty." Jace raised an eyebrow. "Selected. That's a polite word." Priestess Ciela stepped forward. Her eyes glowed faintly, and her voice was softer, almost musical. "Human Jace," she said, "your species is known for resilience, adaptability, stubborn will. These traits are useful for what we require." "I'm just an engineer," Jace replied. "I fix water recycling units and keep this place from falling apart. Whatever you're here for, I'm sure you can find someone more qualified." "Yes," Lord Regent Thalan said calmly. "But we are not looking for skill. We are looking for a particular type of mind. You meet the criteria." That didn't comfort him at all. "What criteria?" Jace asked. Priestess Ciela glanced at a thin, floating display beside her. Volari script glowed on it, shifting and rearranging itself. "Low noble ties, no formal allegiance to any other power, limited kin attachments, high psychological stability rating, and a pattern of self-sacrifice in hazardous conditions." She looked up at him. "You ran into an unstable reactor bay 3 months ago to pull 2 miners out. We noted that." Jace's throat felt dry. "We? Who is we in this context?" "The Empire," Kareth said simply. "You have been under observation since the incident. We have chosen well." "For what?" Jace asked again, more sharply now. Halverson shifted, voice breaking in. "Jace, they showed me the writ. It's real. It has the Emperor's seal. I can't refuse them." Jace stared at him. "Refuse them what?" The High Marshal regarded him with a calm that was almost cruel. "To marry the Princess Lyrana of the Volari line," Kareth said. "You will be her husband by imperial decree." For a second, The words didn't make sense. They just hung in the air, meaningless sounds. Jace actually laughed once, short and disbelieving. "Sorry," he said. "Thought I heard you say, 'marry the princess.' You might want to check your translator." "It functions correctly," Ciela replied. "There is no error. You will be bonded to Lorana. The ceremony will be conducted on our vessel. It must happen soon." Jace felt like someone had kicked the floor out from under him. "You can't be serious," he said. "You don't even know me. I don't know her. I'm human, you're—" He gestured helplessly at them. "You can't just drag someone off and tell them they're married now. That's not how this works." "In your small outpost, perhaps," Thalin said coolly. "In the Empire, duty is not a choice. It is a path." Jace looked at Halverson. "You're just going to let this happen?" Halverson's jaw clenched. "They showed me orbital weapons targeting this station, Jace. If I resist, we're all dead before we can argue. They want you. Just you." The Valari guards shifted slightly, as if to remind him they were listening. Jace's hands curled into fists at his sides. His heart was pounding, but his mind was trying to think, to find some crack in this madness. "Why?" he demanded. "Why me? Why a human? And don't tell me it's just my psychological profile." "There's more to it than that." Priestess Ciela hesitated. For the first time, Jace saw doubt on one of their faces. "The Princess Lyrana carries what our people call a curse," she said quietly. "Every Valari male who has been bound to her by promise, by plan, by ritual, has met tragedy, madness, death. Our own kind will not risk it any longer." Jace stared at her. "So you decided to risk a human instead." "Our seers say the pattern does not fully touch your kind," Ciela went on, ignoring his anger. "Your minds are offset, different. The curse must be sealed, or it will spread through the bloodlines. A husband is required to bind it. Without one, the Empire trembles. With one, it is contained." Kareth's gaze hardened. "We offer you honor, human. You will be acknowledged as consort to Valari royalty. Your homeworld will be recognized as ally. Your outpost will receive resources and protection beyond anything you could imagine. Or we can choose another human, perhaps one less suited, perhaps one with family here." The threat was obvious. It burned through Jace like acid. He wanted to shout, to tell them to get off his station, to throw their imperial duty out an airlock. But he could see Halverson's pale face. He imagined the miners, the med tech, the young comms worker at the observation deck, people who had done nothing wrong, caught under the shadow of a ship that could turn them all to dust. He took a slow breath. "And the princess?" he asked, voice quieter. "What does she think of being married off to a stranger like some tool?" Ciela's eyes softened. "The princess has not left her wing in many cycles. She was not told of our exact method. She only knows that the curse must be resolved." The priestess's voice dropped. "But she is kind, human Jace. She is not your enemy." Jace closed his eyes for a moment. He didn't want any of this. He had never wanted to be important. He liked bolts and wires, not thrones and curses. But he understood something very clearly. If he said no, someone else would be dragged into this in his place. Maybe someone scared and fragile. Maybe someone with kids. He opened his eyes again. "If I go with you," he said slowly, "if I do this, what happens if your curse kills me?" "Then you die in service to an empire," Kareth said. "There are worse deaths." "That's not an answer," Jace shot back. Thalin spoke, voice smooth. "We can make you as comfortable as possible. Wealth, status, every pleasure you could desire. A short, bright life." Jace almost laughed. "You really don't understand humans, do you?" He stood there in the docking bay, surrounded by guards and fate. His heart was racing. Fear whispered that he was a fool for even thinking about this. Pride whispered that he should spit in their faces. But something else, deep and stubborn, whispered that he could not stand by and let others pay the price for his refusal. He exhaled. "Fine," he said at last. "I'll meet her. But if you think I'm going to bow and smile and pretend I'm happy about this, you're more cursed than she is." Kareth's lips twitched, almost like the ghost of respect. "You will come now?" The Valari formed a loose escort around him as they moved toward the ramp leading into the great ship. The air changed as they crossed the threshold, filled with a faint floral scent and a subtle hum of energy. The corridors inside were smooth and curved, lit with soft blue light. Strange symbols glowed on the walls, shifting as they walked past. Jace's boots felt loud on the polished floor. He tried to memorize every path, every junction in case he needed to escape later. Old habit. They stopped before a tall door marked with intricate patterns. Priestess Saela stepped forward and placed her hand against a panel. The patterns flared, then faded. The door slid open with a whisper. Inside was a chamber unlike anything Jace had seen. Soft fabrics draped from the ceiling. A small pool of still water reflected the lights. Crystals hung from delicate chains, casting gentle glimmers. It was quiet, peaceful, and in the center of it all, sitting on a low-cushioned seat, was the princess. She was not what he had imagined, not a cold, perfect statue like the imperial portraits, not a terrifying witch with fire in her eyes. She was young. Her skin had a faint silver sheen, like moonlight on water. Her hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, a pale lavender color that caught the light in subtle hues. Her eyes were large and luminous, a deep, shifting blue. There was a small, faint pattern along her temples, like pale markings half hidden under the skin. But it was her expression that hit him hardest. She looked tired, not physically, but deep in her soul, like someone who had carried too many fears for too long. When she saw the guards, she stood. Her gaze went to Jace last, as if she had been bracing herself for something worse. "This is the human," Thalan said. "Jace Rowan. He will be your husband, Princess Laerana." Her eyes widened, and for a moment Jace saw something like panic flash across her face. She took a step back, then caught herself and bowed her head slightly. "I see," she said softly, her voice clear and gentle. "I was not told he would be brought so soon." She looked at Jace fully now. Her gaze was sharp, searching. Jace felt something brush against his mind, like a soft wind. Then her eyes widened again, and the color drained slightly from her face. "I cannot read him," she whispered. Saela stiffened. "Princess?" Laerana stepped closer to Jace, her eyes never leaving his. "Everyone has a pattern," she said quietly, almost to herself. "Valari, human, any species. Thoughts leave echoes, emotions leave colors. But him," her hand trembled slightly. "He is quiet, like a wall. There is nothing for me to touch. I've never seen that before." Jace frowned. "Is that your curse?" She flinched as if the word hurt. Then she drew in a breath and met his gaze with a fragile courage. "They say I am cursed," she said. "What I truly am is a seer of truth. I sense lies, intent, hidden shadows inside minds. It frightens people. So they gave it another name, a darker one." She glanced at the others, then back at him. "I am sorry," she said suddenly, "for what they are doing to you. They did not ask what you wanted, did they?" Her apology hit him harder than any imperial threat. Jace shook his head. "No, they didn't." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I thought so." For a moment the room felt strangely small, just the two of them facing each other while the Empire watched from the edges. Jace studied her, the sadness in her eyes, the strength under it, the way she still tried to be gentle, even now. He had expected a monster, or a spoiled royal, or a fanatic. Instead, he found someone who seemed as trapped as he was. "They say your curse kills your suitors," he said quietly. Laurana's shoulders sagged. "They died," she said. "Yes. But not because of me. Because of the fear around me. Because of the people who wanted me locked away and used any excuse to make that happen. The stories grew. The word curse spread faster than the truth." She took another slow breath. "But the pattern is real. Every arranged bond has ended in tragedy. That is why they are so desperate now. They think binding me to someone different, someone beyond our bloodlines, will stop the pattern. They think humans are shielded." "Are we?" Jace asked. Her gaze met his again, intense and searching. For a few seconds, neither spoke. Finally, she said, "I do not know. I have never met a human in person before today." Silence settled around them. Jace could feel the eyes of the Valari officials on his back, waiting for his reaction, waiting to see if he would run, or rage, or beg. Instead, he sighed. "This is insane," he said. "You know that, right?" A faint, surprised smile touched Laurana's lips. It made her look younger, almost ordinary. "Yes," she said softly. "It is." He scratched the back of his neck. "But if I walk away, someone else gets dragged in. Someone who might not handle it as well, and from what I've seen, you're not the villain here." Her eyes shone with a quiet, startled warmth at those words. "I do not want anyone to suffer because of me," she whispered. "Yeah," Jace said. "Me neither." He drew a longer breath, feeling the weight of what he was about to say settle on his shoulders. "All right, Princess Laurana," he said. "If we're both trapped in this mess, maybe we can at least try not to let it destroy us. I'll stand there and say the words. I'll play their game. But I'm doing this on my own terms, and if anyone tries to hurt you to keep their lies safe," his jaw tightened, "I'll have something to say about that too." Her eyes widened again, but this time there was something new in them. Not fear, not sadness. Hope. Small. Fragile, but real. "Thank you, Jace Rowan," she said softly, "for telling me the truth. No one has done that in a very long time." As the priestess stepped forward to speak of rituals and timing, Jace stood beside the so-called cursed princess, feeling an odd, unexpected calm settle inside him. He didn't know what waited for him on the other side of this forced marriage. Death, maybe. Madness, or something stranger. But as Laurana's hand brushed lightly against his in a hesitant, accidental touch, he realized something that made him almost laugh. For a woman he was being dragged to marry at weapon point, she was exactly the kind of person he had always respected. Honest, wounded, stronger than she knew. Exactly his type. Jace did not sleep that night. The Valari ship had given him a private room, large, soft, filled with cushions and glowing light, but it felt more like a gilded cage than a guest chamber. He paced across the smooth floor again and again, trying to calm the storm inside his chest. He had agreed to the ceremony. He had agreed to stand beside a princess who didn't want this any more than he did. He had agreed to let an empire use him like a tool because the alternative meant innocent people dying. And now he was trapped on a ship bigger than anything he'd ever seen, surrounded by guards who watched him with blank, unreadable eyes. But what bothered him most wasn't the threat, or the unknown world ahead, or even the strange rituals. It was the memory of Princess Laurana's eyes when she said she couldn't read him, that shock, that curiosity, that hope. He dropped onto the cushions and rubbed his face with both hands. "This is crazy," he whispered to himself. A soft chime sounded at the door. Jace stood quickly, expecting guards, but when the door slid open, he saw a small Valari attendant holding a tray. The girl was young, maybe a teenager in human years, wearing a pale uniform and keeping her eyes down. "I bring food," she said quietly. Jace nodded. "Thanks." She set the tray on the low table and turned to leave, but then she paused, hesitating. Her fingers gripped the edge of the door as if she wanted to speak but was scared. "Is something wrong?" Jace asked gently. The girl swallowed. "Human, sir. I only want to say, not all Valari agree with this. Some think the princess deserves kindness, not fear." She looked up quickly. "And some think you are brave." Jace blinked. "Brave? I think the word is stupid." A tiny smile flickered across her face. Both can be true. And then she slipped away before he could ask anything else. Jace sighed and sat down. The food looked fancy, shimmering fruits, warm bread, a bowl of soup that smelled sweet and spicy. He ate slowly, thinking of home. He didn't have much of a home to begin with, but K-17 was familiar. His tools were there, his crew, his quiet corner of the universe, and now he was being taken somewhere he couldn't even find on a map. Hours passed. He lay on the cushions, trying to rest. But thoughts kept him awake until he heard another chime at the door. This time the door opened without his answer, and Priestess Sayla stepped in. "Human Jace, the princess requests your presence." Jace sat up fast. "Now?" "Yes, before the ceremony." Jace followed her through long halls that glowed with soft blue light. The corridors were quiet, almost too quiet, like the ship was holding its breath. When they reached the princess's chambers, Sayla stepped aside and motioned for him to enter alone. Jace took a deep breath and walked in. Princess Lyrana stood near the circular pool in the center of the room. She wasn't wearing royal robes this time. Instead, she wore simple, soft fabric in shades of pale blue. Her hair was loose, falling around her shoulders. She turned when she heard him enter. "Jace Rowan," she said softly. He nodded. "Princess." "You may call me Lyrana," she whispered. He hesitated. "All right, Lyrana." She seemed relieved at that, as if hearing her name said kindly meant something important. For a moment, neither spoke. The ship hummed around them. The crystals overhead swayed slightly, casting small lights across the room. Finally, Lyrana stepped closer, hands clasped in front of her. "I wanted to see you before the ceremony," she said. "There is something you should know." Jace waited. She looked down at her hands. "You asked earlier if the curse would kill you. I do not know. But I want to be honest with you. I must be honest with you. The last 3 men the council tried to bind to me died within a week." Jace stiffened. "How?" "One fell from a balcony," she whispered. "One suffered a sudden attack of fear and took his own life. One simply collapsed during a ritual and never woke again." Jace's jaw clenched. "Were they harmed? Poisoned? Threatened?" "That is what I believe," she said quietly. "But no one listened to me. They said the curse fed on close bonds, that my presence caused their minds to break." "That doesn't make sense," Jace said firmly. "You're not dangerous." Her eyes widened a little. "You say that so easily." "Because it's true." Lyrana lifted her chin slightly. "You do not fear me?" "No," Jace said. "But I'm starting to fear the people who put this mess together." She let out a small, sad breath. "You are not wrong." Jace took a step closer. "Why did the Empire even start calling it a curse? Why not tell the truth about your gift?" Lyrana looked toward the floating crystals, their light reflecting in her eyes. "When I was young," she said, "I told the Emperor, my father, about a lie I sensed from one of his advisors. That advisor was powerful. He convinced the council that I was unstable, dangerous. He called my ability a curse from the old bloodlines. Others repeated it until it became the truth." Jace felt anger curling in his chest. So they punished you for telling the truth? Yes. And now they want to marry you off like a fix for a problem they created. She nodded slowly. They think if I am bound to someone, my ability will be weakened, controlled. And if that someone dies, then the curse will be blamed, not them. Jace felt something snap inside him. They're using you, he said, and me. Yes, she whispered, but I do not want you to walk into this blind. I wanted to warn you. Even if it makes you hate me. Jace stared at her. She looked fragile, standing alone in that glowing room, hands shaking slightly. He stepped closer, stopping only when he was a few feet away. I don't hate you, he said. You didn't choose this. Her eyes lifted to his, shining. I did not, and you did not either. For what it's worth, Jace said softly, I'm not going to let them hurt you. She blinked in surprise. Why would you risk yourself for me? Because someone should, he said simply. Her breath caught for a moment. She looked away quickly, but he saw the flicker of emotion on her face. Something warm, something grateful, something she had never been allowed to feel before. Sayela entered again, bowing. It is time. Lyrana's hands tightened at her sides. Very well. Jace walked beside her as they entered a long passage glowing with white light. The air felt different here, heavier, like the ship itself knew something important was happening. They stepped into a wide chamber filled with glowing symbols on the floor and walls. Velari nobles stood in a circle watching silently. High Marshal Karith and Regent Thalen stood near the front, their faces unreadable. In the center of the room was a raised platform. 2 crystal stands held thin, glowing strands of energy, a symbol of union among the Velari, Jace guessed. Lyrana's steps slowed as they approached. Jace felt her tension like a cold wind. He reached out without thinking and lightly touched her hand. She gasped softly and looked at him, startled. It's okay, he whispered. I'm here. Her fingers tightened around his in a small, desperate grip. A priest stepped forward and began chanting in the Velari tongue. The sounds were strange, sharp and soft at once. Light rose from the floor, curling around Lyrana's feet first, then around Jace's boots. It felt warm, almost alive. Place your hands together, the priest said. Lyrana's hand trembled as she lifted it. Jace met her halfway, fingers brushing hers gently before he took her hand fully. A bright flash surged upward where their hands touched. Gasps rippled through the nobles. The light around their hands didn't stay calm. It twisted, brightened, then snapped into a shape like a burning thread. What is happening? Sayla whispered sharply. The priest stepped back in fear. The binding! It is not sealing! It is reacting! Lines of glowing symbols shot up the princess's arms. Jace felt heat, but not pain, like a warm wind pushing against him. What do we do? He asked, gripping her hand tighter. Do not let go, Lyrana said urgently. If you break contact, the backlash could harm us both. Then we hold on, he said. The light intensified, swirling around them. The nobles stepped back, murmuring in panic. High Marshal Karith shouted commands, but the symbols on the floor had come alive, glowing like fire. Lyrana closed her eyes, breathing fast. I feel something, she whispered. Something new. Something I've never sensed before. What? Jace asked. Her eyes opened slowly. You, she said. You are blocking every echo, every shadow. The bond cannot read you at all. It cannot decide if you are friend or enemy. It is confused. Story of my life, Jace muttered. She almost laughed despite the fear. The symbols suddenly flared and then shattered into 1,000 sparks of light that rained down on them like soft falling snow. The chamber fell silent. The priest stared in shock. The curse. It did not seal. It did not break. It changed. Kareth stepped forward, jaw clenched. Explain. The priest bowed in fear. The human is incompatible with the old patterns. The bond did not fail, but it also did not finish. What does that mean? Jace asked. Ciela stepped closer, studying them both. It means the Empire does not know whether you are now husband and wife, or something far more dangerous. Lyrana's hand squeezed his again before she slowly let go. Jace felt the absence of her touch like a sudden cold. The nobles whispered among themselves. Faces looked angry, frightened, uncertain. Regent Thalan's voice cut through the room like a blade. We must examine this carefully. Jace could feel Lyrana tense beside him. She knew what examine meant in Vallari politics. He stepped forward, placing himself slightly between her and the nobles, earning shocked murmurs. No one is examining her, he said firmly. Or me. We did what you wanted. You forced us into this. So back off and let her breathe. The room went still. A human had spoken against the regent, in public. Kareth's eyes narrowed. You forget your place, human? No, Jace replied. I'm deciding it. Ciela looked between them with a strange expression, almost respect. The priest bowed his head, unsure. And Lyrana? Lyrana looked at Jace with wide, shining eyes, as if no one had ever stood up for her before. Take the princess to her chambers, Thalan said coldly, and take the human somewhere he cannot cause trouble. 2 guards stepped forward. Lyrana reached out instinctively, but Jace shook his head slightly. It's okay, he said quietly. I'll see you again. Her lips parted, trembling, but she didn't look away as the guards led her off. As Jace was escorted down a separate corridor, he glanced back and saw her one last time, her small, brave figure turning a corner, swallowed by light. He didn't know what the Empire planned next, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever this bond had become, he was not letting the Vallari use her or destroy her, not while he was still breathing.